Welcome guys to Norwegian Modeling Bench. This is Kenneth, and finally the build of the USS Enterprise CV-6 is finished. This build is a combination of the basic Trumpeter kit and detail offsets from Pontos and KA-models. It's been a long journey, taking approximately 1 year to build in calendar time, including holidays. I would assume that I've laid down like 1,000 to 1,200 hours in this build, and I've tried to keep you guys updated during the build. So this will be a revisit of the build installments, and then showing the last detailing before presenting the final product. For those of you that haven't followed the build, I've also included cards during this video to the relevant installments. Hopefully you like the end results as much as I do. It's definitely not the perfect build, if such a build exists, but I like it and hopefully you can learn something from it as well. And please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. This gives me a good indication if you would like me to continue creating more videos, and of course easier to get notifications when I publish new videos. If you liked this video, then please use the like button, and as always I do appreciate comments. So let's go down memory lane and look at the end result. So then for the last time of this build, enjoy! As usual with ship models, starting out with the hull, checking reference materials, and then figuring out what to do. And in this case it was adding plating lines to get a bit more realism than the kit part provided. Adding scuttles and then degaussing lines. I also elected to go with measure 21, so navy blue as the main color for all vertical surfaces. And this applies to the hull as well. So adding the booting top line and the anti-foul red color. Then was moving ahead with the bow area, where you have a structure that needs to be added, lots of PE detail, and also working on the hangar deck, because that needs to be in place before adding those stern and bow sections to the hull. So using gray color, trying to get some modulation in the color before moving on with finalizing the details on the bow. So then was the stern deck. There is a lot of things to be aware of here in terms of the placement of this bulkhead. So this is definitely an installment that you should take a look at. And a lot of nice PE work going on this stern module, so you will have a lot of enjoyment in building that. And this was the end result before the other parts from the flight deck were added. So starting with the starboard side, and this is I've made 4 installments covering the starboard side. A lot of nice PE photo etch, that is, details going on here that you need to add. Pay attention to what you need to remove in terms of kit parts. And also I have tried to lay out some of the sequence that I feel is the best in terms of being able to get a good end result. But as you can see, it's an amazing amount of great details made with PE. So if you like PE, this is definitely a kit, and the detail upsets are definitely a must-have in those cases. So the starboard side is comprised of 3 main bulkhead parts. So the middle one is the longest one. Not that much of PE going on this one, so a fairly easy job on that. You also have this part that goes on the flight deck that I've prepared and I'm installing later on. And this middle part you should also take care of, because here you have overlapping parts from the first bulkhead going on the second. So something to be aware of, and then dry fitting everything to see how it all matches up before dry fitting again after the walls have been painted up, making sure that it all aligns with the flight deck. So this is a critical step, so you will have a good end result when adding the flight deck to the ship. So then moving on to the other side, also known as the port side. This is not composed of that many bulkheads, but still a long one. So first starting with the fore one, so the one in the bow area. Still, you have a lot of nice PE details from the Pontos set. Not too difficult when you have practice on the starboard side, but you have this long one, which is definitely a challenge. So you can, of course, make them in several sections, but I elected to go with one. I couldn't see how it could be done in a good way if you didn't join them together as I did here. And a lot of PE work again. Just look at these details. So I think Pontos did an amazing job on this one. And compared to the KA one, not a doubt in my mind which one I would select if you need to select. So adding these and painting them up requires a lot of work. There are lots of nooks and crevices that you need to take into account. So installing them, use some time. I at least take one bulkhead at a time, getting them to cure before moving on to the next one. And again, be very vigilant at dry testing the flight deck, so you get the proper alignment, so the walls or the bulkheads aren't skewed. Then weathering up the inside hangar deck. There's a lot of different paints and so on I used, both on the hull itself and on the hangar deck. So take a look at that installment to get some insight in what I did. It might look exaggerated, but actually when you look at the model when it is all put together, it's not actually that exaggerated, and in normal light, of course, as well, it doesn't look very exaggerated. And then for the PE bonanza, I would say that is bow and stern flight deck, or the structures that go beneath. There is a lot of different PE that you definitely need to sequence up. So I tried to give some pointers on how I sequence this up. And I think that the results are very good, if I might say so. Maybe Pontos is the reason for that, but at least it requires a lot of work, and you need to be precise when you work with this. But just look at this. These are images that makes me warm at the heart, at least when watching models. And well, I would love actually not to paint it up, but still. The same thing on the stern, but now you're not working directly on the flight deck itself with making a single component before you join the kit flight deck with the PE part. Again, same thing, you need to be a bit vigilant when looking at the sequence, but otherwise it's actually not that difficult. And you see here how the flight deck kit part and that PE component is then joined together. And also test fitting it on the stern structure, and I think it just looks quite amazing, if I may say so again. So please take a look at those installments to give you at least a bit of an insight there. So starting with the air wing, so I'm not going into very much detail here. I would again refer to the installments, so making up a good part of the flight, the aircraft, sorry. So starting out with the fighters, the Wildcats, using both KA detail upset, so an extra detail upset for those. So I would recommend taking a look at that at least, and you can see the results. And these are combinations of both the Trumpeter aircraft and those that detail upset from KA. I used Pontos on some, but in terms of numbers, well, I wouldn't have enough airplanes to what I want to achieve at least. And then the bombers, the dive bombers, the Dauntlesses here, I think they are quite nice looking with those dive brakes. And then we have the torpedo bombers, the Devastators. So same approach as I did with all airplanes, really. So take a look at the installments on all the different steps that I took to make these. Also I did add some filter, and here I'm adding then a matte varnish to protect it and to give it a nice matte look. So here is the result, and I did it before I then started with the hangar, because I wanted to have some details within the hangar deck with the planes. And then that work started out, so adding the elevator that I wanted to have a bit down in a lower position, adding a lot of crates and bags and airplane parts and so on. Then adding an LED strip in the roof and using the girder structure and some extra parts, support parts that I added to the hangar. And well, I think it's actually looking quite nice when you see inside the hangar. I know that Ben has done a different color on the deck, but I think this gray color actually looks quite nice, if I may say so. So then closing up the flight deck, it will of course give another impression. So starting with the flight deck, I'm using the Pontos wooden deck for this one, painting up the parts separately, so giving it the flight deck stain for the wooden parts, and also painting up the PE parts before adding them to the deck. And this is definitely a PE bonanza. You will have a lot of PE parts, as you can see, added to the deck. And I'm using Gorilla wooden glue to glue down the wooden deck. Then there is a lot of parts that you need to remove from that wooden deck where the PE is going in. So just use time and patience, and eventually you will get there. And then I weathered up the deck, of course, adding a gloss varnish, otherwise it would ruin the wood and it will swell up most likely. So applying white spirit and some weathering fluids to the deck, and also some oil stains. So this is then the end result of that weathering. And again, I'm very happy actually with this result. Then it's the island, which is then divided into three parts. I've added a lot of scuttles that came from the KA kit, and divided this build into several parts because of how I should and could paint it up. Because you have areas where you want to have deck blue, and other areas where you need to have navy blue, and it's not very easy to reach in. So that's something to think of when working on this. So making sub-assemblies and then putting them together is at least what was my way of doing this. Same thing with the funnel, so keeping that as a sub-assembly because I'm painting it black at least, and then well, painting those up and installing them later on. And as you can see, a lot of nice details. Again, so Pontos did a really good job on this one as well, I would say. And when this is all weathered up and so on, it actually looks quite nice. This one, the tripod master, the fire control, keep in mind that the Pontos brass rod isn't long enough, so that was at least a bit of made it a bit tedious, I would say. And you have a lot of nice details with the directors going on here as well. So here you can see with the directors on, it's weathered up, those nice searchlights, a bit of a miss here with the varnish, but I fixed that up. But otherwise also doing the rigging. And then we have the boats. Take a look at the installment again. Those kit boats, they look awful if you ask me, and these KA ones, they are actually quite nice. I saw from Nigel that he had some issues with the ones he got, but still I'm happy with these. And it's also a combination with one of the row cutter from the kit with added some parts from KA, the PE parts. So here you can see them added to the ship. Yes, this is in the wrong direction, but it was the only way it could fit. But otherwise, I think it's a good addition. It gives something extra to the monochrome scheme. And then there are the guns. Well, look at the installment. I did make a lot of different guns for the ship. You can also see the build there of the different guns. But I lost some footage here, so well, please look at the installment. Then it's the sea base. I said in the beginning that I wanted to add a ship to a sea base because I wanted to give it a bit of a scenery and so on. So just keeping it on a pedestal or something like that, I think that would defeat the purpose. So using just styrofoam and painting it up, trying to make a water base, something that looks like the Pacific Sea. Well, I've never seen the Pacific Sea, so based on what I've seen in pictures in terms of colors and so on, one can always discuss if I've totally missed or not. But at least I think it gives quite a good impression, especially when you're not looking in videos like this. I think the colors are not. It's not like they actually are when I'm looking at it with my own eyes, so to say. And then going to some new parts, so final detailing. So adding those fantails, that's a quite nice addition. Suddenly it went from being a model to an actual real ship, kind of. So adding those of course have been painted up and so on in the beginning, before I did this, of course, because you don't want to start using the airbrush on the model when it's nearly finished. And then there are lots of different parts that are going on here. Some of the deck, steel deck that the gun tubs are going in on. And of course a lot of railing on the sides that I needed to add. Not showing you all of those railings, of course. So well, on both sides I waited until the last minute to add those. They were so easy to snap off. So hopefully that won't happen before I reach the end, right? So then adding those small platforms that's going on the side of the crane as well. things that could easily be snapped off. Same with this accommodation ladder. It was actually quite fun to build. It was some challenge with that one, and I hope that this will also give a good impression when looking at the model later. And then we have these platforms on the side where you have the landing officer standing, giving directions to the pilots. Also with this harness beneath, safety harness, which also is a good addition, which gives it a good something extra to look at in a different color, right? So that is definitely something that you should add, if you ask me. Then we have the different gun tubs. I'm adding at least one of the gun tubs here before adding the island. So again, my friend E6000, so you can do adjustments before moving on. Also adding the arresting gear, so just some fine rigging line. It's not very visible, but at least I know it's there. So if somebody's pointing out, well, you've not added the rigging, well, I have. Then this was a huge milestone, adding the island to the ship. Again, using E6000, so you have time to adjust before it all cures up and it's in the wrong position. So, well, it was fun. Now adding the guns. So we're starting to get very close to the finish line. Adding the Bofors. Oops, I dropped it. Well, it went fine. I just had to add it, so you can see that I'm doing mistakes as well. And again, I'm using E6000 for these because you want to have some time to position them. So at least that's my point of view. Not doing the same for the Olicons though. Then I'm using CA glue. Then you have 8 of these, and I've also added a Chicago piano in the bow area, as you might see there. Then adding the railing around the elevator. Since this is in a down position, then this railing goes up, so you don't have any crew members falling down, which is a good idea. And then I'm starting to add all of the Olicons. You have 50 of them, so again, be a bit patient, but I think it all went fine and dandy. And these are the Bunker Studio ones, as I showed in the guns installment. Then it was time to get the air wing in place, so installing all of those Wildcats, Devastators, Dauntlesses, and also using those tire chokes from KA, which is a bit painful, but I think it also gives a bit of an extra detail on the flight deck. A bit easier with these in the midship at least, just adding glue and putting them into place. So then the crew, painting up at least 350 crew members, not necessarily in the correct ratio. And then, of course, gluing them one by one to the ship and trying to make some different, interesting scenarios before actually reaching the end. So now we have reached the end of the build. You can now look at the pictures and videos that I've taken of the final product. I hope that you do enjoy, and until next time, stay safe.